One of our top stories this morning, video footage circulated on social media of an arrest of a woman in Lolo who appears to be pointing a pistol at sheriff's deputies in a threatening manner. In the video, neighbors described the situation as, quote, looking like a shootout, end quote. However, no bullets were ever fired. Missoula County Undersheriff Rich Marcelli says deputies were called to the scene after 8 o'clock Sunday night.
He had a call of an intoxicated woman, and it was in the vicinity of the fire station in Lolo, near the entrance to the trailer court, and it was reported that she was aiming and waving some kind of a firearm. It was subsequently determined that she was highly intoxicated, and she did have what appeared to be a weapon, but it was actually a Nerf gun of some kind, so a toy weapon.
The video also shows deputies arresting the woman calmly and leading her back to a patrol car without violence, even as the suspect jumped and tried to free herself. Marcelli says deputies have been specially trained to deal with these situations.
We have a program that's called CIT, and it's Critical Incident Training, and essentially it enables the deputies to identify people that are in mental crisis versus some other type of a capacity, and trying to work with, again, the hospitals and determine the best course of treatment for them.
The suspect was not taken to jail, but a local hospital for treatment and recovery, which Marcelli says is a function of Missoula's jail diversion plan. The name of the suspect will not be released because she has not officially been charged with a crime. A woman spotted in the icy waters of the Clark Fork River had to be rescued Sunday afternoon by a specially trained crew from the Missoula Fire Department. Missoula Police spokesman Travis Welsh explains.
About 1:26 in the afternoon, when an unidentified female was found floating in the river west of the Russell Street Bridge, Missoula City Fire responded with their swift water rescue team and pulled the female from the water. She was transported to the hospital, and at this point, we are waiting to speak with her.
The woman was conscious when she was pulled out of the water. However, police are trying to work out how she ended up in the water in the first place.
In order to identify whether or not she was a victim of a crime, potentially, she was transported to the hospital either due to some reason that is yet unknown or perhaps, hypothermia. She was somewhat combative with staff and had to be sedated.
The rescue crew pulled the woman out of the water with a rope. No one was injured. A Helena attorney wants to change Montana's constitution to explicitly ban non-U.S. citizens from voting in elections, a measure that one immigrant rights advocate called an attempt to stoke anti-immigration sentiment ahead of midterm elections. Chris Gallus, who has previously represented conservative groups and individuals, submitted his proposed ballot initiative last Thursday to the Secretary of State's office for a review. He said he's seeking to preserve the integrity of state elections through Montana's Constitution, and statutes already define a quality voter as a U.S. citizen who has been a resident of the state for at least 30 days. University of Montana law professor Anthony Johnstone said the state constitution's framers deliberately avoided putting into the document the level of detail that Gallus is seeking to enshrine in order to give lawmakers the ability to make changes in residency requirements if needed. If Gallus's proposal passes a legal review, he'll have to gather signatures of 10% of the voters spread out over 40 legislative districts. That's a little over almost 51,000 signatures total for the measure to be placed on the November ballot. Last week, Montana Congressman Greg Gianforte introduced the Tribal Addiction and Recovery Act with Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma. The legislation will combat meth use across the state and improve the ability of Indian tribes to address the scourge of meth.
Montana is suffering a crisis of meth use, which affects not only the addicts, but also their families, communities, and even babies who are born addicted. This tragic epidemic requires more resources and the focus of officials at all levels of government.
Montana saw a 427% increase in meth violations from 2010 to 2015. 54% of investigations conducted by Montana Narcotics Bureau agents involved meth. In addition, methamphetamines account for the second most drug violations in Montana at 31%. Marijuana accounts for 57% of drug violations in the state. Federal officials have postponed an upcoming sale of some oil and gas leases in south-central Montana after concerns were raised about drilling in an area heavily dependent on tourism. The BLM announced yesterday it was deferring next week's scheduled sale of leases, totaling about 27 square miles, pending further study. The decision affects all or portions of 28 parcels near Livingston and in the foothills of the Absaroka and Beartooth mountain ranges. The sale was scheduled for March 13th. Environmental groups and residents of the area had said they were worried about potential negative effects of drilling in the nearby Yellowstone River. Lease sales are still planned for 83 parcels elsewhere in the state through an online auction. One of the most pressing issues in the state is the lack of affordable housing, and the University of Montana Bureau of Business and Economic Research is studying the many factors involved. Associate Director Bryce Ward comments on what makes housing somewhat unaffordable in Montana at this time.
If you're a house in Montana and you look at the house and you go, well, what am I paying for? The houses are pretty typical, and the cost of building houses in Montana tends to be pretty comparable to other places. But the land that sits underneath that house tends to be what's expensive.
Ward said the long-term outlook is not optimistic as far as affordable housing is concerned, in that more and more people are moving to the West, which is why Montanans have to lead the country in entrepreneurism.
There's a foundation called the Kauffman Foundation, which every year puts out a ranking of entrepreneurial environments by state, and Montana has ranked first for the past 4 years. So I think that Montana attitude of, yeah, I just want to live here, I'll figure out how to do it, and so you'll end up working multiple jobs or putting a weird career together or starting your own thing. People kind of figure out how to live here because they like it here.
Find information about the Bureau of Business and Economic Research on our website at newstalkkgvo.com. The Montana State Land Board approved the most expensive land purchase in the history of the state. The Billings Gazette reports Montana bought a farm 25 miles north of Miles City in Rosebud County for $11.3 million. The deal is set to close this Friday. The 27-square-mile Angela Farm property was originally supposed to be an even larger purchase. Another 11 square miles that was supposed to be Phase 2, an additional $4.1 million, was dropped for not meeting the state's rate of return criteria and also due to a lack of funding. Our News Talk time now is 6:12.
News Talk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
Mostly cloudy skies early today with sunshine appearing by the afternoon. Daytime highs will top out in the low 40s. Tonight, mostly clear and cold. Overnight low temperatures will drop into the teens. I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster for Missoula's KECI 13.